Hello, Chi Sisters. Today's video, I want to address the concept of balance brings harmony. It's the second level of the heaven triad. Remember, there's three triads: heaven, human, and earth, and heaven, human, and earth existing in each triad. Last video, I talked about the first one, which was stillness and motion, motion in stillness, working with those two concepts as the heaven aspect of the heaven triad. In other words, this is a guideline. This is a way in which we can start to think in a universal way about how to be in relationship with energetic fields, right? That we are, when we're standing still or breathing or working in meditation or something like that, there's a lot of movement happening inside that stillness. And at the same time, when we are in motion, to be able to cultivate an inner stillness so that we're able to show up in very present ways for what's happening in our lives. Today, when I talk about balance brings harmony, it's a way, since it's the human aspect of the heaven triad, it's a way to personalize, really make this larger concept of stillness and motion, motion and stillness real for you. And when I think about balance brings harmony, I'm really thinking about, of course, balancing internal and external, balancing yin and yang, balancing heaven and earth, balancing being and doing, all of the various sort of polarities that we balance in terms of how we live our lives. The second level that I want to address is not just about how we balance yin and yang or polarities, being and doing, or I think of it as expanding and contracting, expanding our energy, like when we're out there connecting with people or being in a more extroverted place, and then how do we come back to that self-care, that inner awareness, that contraction of really allowing ourselves to kind of go to bed, go to sleep, go to that internal place, whether it's through meditation or simply through rest, that we need to balance expansion and contraction. There's other videos in the archives about expansion and contraction. I encourage you to look at them because it's actually a very big topic. But today what I want to look at when I'm talking about balance is two parts. The first part is the balance that happens within that yin-yang symbol. So there's this Tao symbol where there's a kind of a curve, light, and there's a little dark dot in it, and in the dark there's a little light dot, so that there's dark inside the light, light inside the dark. The best way I like to think about this is in terms of your breath. So when you inhale, that could be considered a yin motion, right? You're thinking about taking a deep breath. You're allowing yourself to come in, to bring energy in towards you. And at the same time, in order to do that, your lungs need to expand. So expanding and bringing breath in is the yang aspect to bring in, to that lives inside of the yin activity of breathing in. When you breathe out, your lungs contract. They push together. The diaphragm lifts to send your breath out. And of course, breath out, we often associate that with doing something, the exertion that you have to do when, for example, you're pushing something or lifting something heavy. You're needing to really bring energy out. That's the yin inside of the yang, the yin, the contraction of the lungs inside of the yang, expansion of what it is that you're pushing your energy towards. The second part that I wanted to talk about that had to do with balance, because I think this is really important. How we look at how we balance really matters. It's not simply just the most obvious parts, but there's looking at what's inside. How do we really balance the hall of mirrors of yin and yang? The second part of balance is what one teacher taught me about, which is she talked about how it's important to have your balance go in three directions, not just two. So she was talking about it in terms of how we use our energy. She said you want to have 1/3 of your energy go out in service, to be able to do what you need to do, to be able to connect, to be able to do whatever it is that's important for you in terms of expression, in terms of action. 1/3 of your energy, she said, needs to go basically in to replenish yourself. So just like you have a day and then it's followed by a night, you have action and then you have rest. To have that time, 1/3 of your energy into self-nourishment, replenishment, taking care of yourself. The third aspect that she talked about was one that I think as women we tend to forget fairly often. Not just women, but certainly as women who are trained to more or less be caretakers in one way or another, which is to put 1/3 of your energy in the bank. When what that she means by that is to put it into reserve, to know that you need to take some energy that's really to pull upon during those times when you're overly committed or things are really accelerated for you. So just in the same way that you ideally we have some money put aside for emergencies. You know, the financial advisors say you should have 3 months, and whether you do that financially or not, but that you have money set aside for if your car breaks down or if something happens, to be able to have 1/3 of your energy put in the same way as reserve to draw upon during those times when you really need to. So again, these are the two aspects of balance brings harmony. When we bring this balancing together, that awareness of how yin lives inside of yang, how our internal attention, our internal focus lives inside of what it is that we do on the outside, and how that sense of contraction, that sense of wanting to really come back in, focus inside, it allows for an internal expansion. Just like in that Picasso story that I've told, I think at least once on this video series, the story about Picasso in his garden one day, looking around and seeing the plants and the animals and the bugs and the butterflies and so forth. And his neighbor leans on the fence, says, "Hey Pablo, looks like you're resting today, good for you." And Picasso says, "No, today I'm working." And the next day he's in the garden and he's painting like crazy on his canvas, and the neighbor comes and says, "Hey Pablo, looks like you're working today, good for you." And he said, "No, today I'm resting." Perfect example of yin inside the yang. He's looking around, it looks like nothing is happening, and internally there's this churning happening, this building up of his creative chi. Then he's out in the garden and he's painting and he's in the zone. It's like flying, it's effortless, it's like surfing, just rolling along on the wave. That is restful, even though it looks like work is happening. Love thinking about how do we balance yin and yang in this way. And then, of course, this other concept of the 3 parts of your energy: action, internal replenishment, and energy in reserve. Okay, so I'd like to do the Balance Brings Harmony Qigong form, which I love to do lotus balancing for this. So I don't have my headset. It seems to have disappeared. So I'm hoping that you're still going to be able to hear me. Do give me the feedback if you can't. From this camera. But we're going to stand with our feet hip distance apart, and feet relax your energy between your ball of your big toe, the ball of your little toe, and your heel. Drop your tailbone down, and the movement is very simply to bring one hand with the palm turned down about shoulder height, the other hand about hip height, and then reverse it. And as always, these forms exist in your Pivot to Positive program, so if you want to just work with the form with the training that I have in that, you can switch over to Pivot to Positive. But what I'd like you to do right now is, as you're doing this movement, to feel the weight of the air in your palms, the texture of the air with your fingertips, and to feel movement moving up and down the spine, so that as one hand comes up, energy is traveling up the spine, and simultaneously as the hand goes down, we have energy going down on the other side of the spine. So we're creating a balance internally. Then if you like, you can add the weight shift, where you shift into one foot as your hand goes down, and then into the other. Now, if you're doing the weight shift part of this sequence, it's important to make sure that your tailbone stays connected to the earth and your crown stays lifted up towards the sky. You don't want to be doing something where you're tilting or becoming out of alignment, because as your palm goes up, you're connecting with the energy of heaven, with your inspiration. As your hand goes down, you're connecting with your ability to manifest, to walk your talk. So we want to have a sense of being constantly in alignment, one inside the other. This way we cultivate heaven inside of earth and earth inside of heaven. If you want to add to it, you can do this movement where you're actually lifting one foot up and then the other. So if you want to test your balance, and it's a good idea to do this from time to time, to feel like you can really ground 100% into one side. The other becomes light and free. Just like Picasso painting in the garden, there's an effortlessness as the foot comes up off the ground. So we're just going up and down a few more times. And then bring your hands to your lower dantian. Now, of course, you can do that quite a bit longer, and I encourage you to go ahead and do that. But to try to do it at least 9 times, where you're 1 and 2 and 9 times back and forth, and just allow your energy fields to come into balance so that you can show up in whatever ways you need to for your day. I'd love to also ask you to answer a question. Today's question is, what is your let me see, how can I put this? When you think about connecting to your observer self, the part of you that is able to be a guide, that's able to observe without judgment, but be able to be neutral and compassionate, how does that come to you? I know some people have said it's like an inner voice that you hear. Other people say it's just a physical sensation. How does your observer self, the witness, the part of you that's there all the time, whether we pay attention to it or not, how do you experience it? Go ahead and send me an email or write it in our Facebook page. Till next time, be well and let the chi flow. Bye-bye.